what fun to be joined by David Rothkopf this morning to do a download on last night's showmanship of Donald Trump. And David, before we go any further, I want to read the first paragraph of your superb column in the Daily Beast this morning. If you took every true thing President Donald Trump said during Tuesday's State of the Union address and tattooed it onto the genitalia of a flea, there would still be room for the Gettysburg Address. Come on, people, if that's not worth commenting on, I do not know what is. David, you had to watch it. You lost 2 hours of your life. How are you ever going to make them back?
Why did I lost 4 hours because then I spent a while working with your guys on the column. I think this is what we do. This is the sacrifices we make for the Daily Beast audience. And I presume that in some kind of Daily Beast heaven, I'll be rewarded.
Well, will you? I wonder. So we're happy to take comments from people watching this, but your first impressions of another great line from your column, this was MAGA for Dummies. What did you make of it? You've probably sat through, because you're such a political swot, you've probably sat through the State of the Union speeches since you were a 4-year-old.
Well, I don't know. I actually probably did. In my household growing up.
Of course you did.
These are we talked about politics around the table. But one of the things that was striking about last night was how little new there was, how unoriginal the whole thing was. Yep. It was MAGA for Dummies. It was every Trump speech he makes. It was the last speech he made. It was the next speech he made. And it was done in, Trumpian style. It was kind of fluffed up with these kind of Price is Right game show elements where you get a Medal of Honor and you get a Medal of Honor and you get a Purple Heart and you get to meet your uncle you haven't seen in a while. And,
this wasn't it, where he went, Enrique, come on down.
It was lunatic, right? But the point is, the vapidity was compounded with the cheeseballness of it. Mm-hmm. And you could say, well, vapidity plus cheeseball means it's unimportant. But the reality is this: every time he said something awful, every time he lied, the Republicans in the group stood up and cheered and hooted and yawped and did what you do in a authoritarian state. It looked like a Nuremberg rally, or it looked like, a meeting of the Communist Party in Pyongyang in North Korea, because they would cheer whatever he said, even if he was being racist about Somalis, or if he was attacking the Supreme Court and saying, you say I have to talk to the Congress, but I'm not going to talk to the Congress. And
well, that was an amazing moment. So can we just... It was amazing. Yeah, can we just debrief for a second on the first human drama of the evening, which was Donald Trump coming in and then doing a drive-by the 4 members of the Supreme Court who turned up?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was very, very chilly. Only one of the Supreme Court members he liked showed up, and that was Kavanaugh, who must have felt real awkward standing as he was with the Chief Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Kagan. But it got worse because they knew that he would say something bad later. And indeed, he did not disappoint, because he said he was disappointed in their decision and then said, I'm going to do tariffs however I want to do tariffs. And they gave me more power, not less power, and I don't need to talk to the Congress. And, that's the opposite. They said the power to tax resides with the Congress.
Well, you also had a very good line about that as Congress sat there basically clapping their own demise.
Yeah, well, that's right. But I think we might look at it another way, which is, He's now pursuing this. He's doing this via this Section 122, which we don't have to go into the details, but is only for an extreme economic emergency. And after all, he's saying we're the hottest country in the world. So these tariffs are illegal. And we're going to get another ruling from the court, and he's going to be ruled down again. And the question is he going to ignore it again? Because what you saw there, sort of in the tea leaves, was the beginning, and not the very beginning, we're a little further than that, of a constitutional crisis in America.
Oh, you really think that that's what we saw the beginning of?
Well, if Trump ignores the Supreme Court, which is a co-equal branch of government, and for the past couple of 100 years, the executive branch has abided by the rulings of the Supreme Court, we've got a problem, because you have this, sort of flaccid Congress that won't stand up for its rights under Article 1 of the Constitution. And you now have Trump essentially saying, I don't care about Article 3 of the Constitution either. So that's a problem.
Okay, so we've got the SCOTUS clip, which we're just about to play. Bear with us. The producer is just giving me my computer Mac. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we've got the SCOTUS clip that we're about to play. For those who didn't sit through the State of the Union last night, you don't need to, because we did it for you, and we're going to play you the highlights.
And then just 4 days ago, an unfortunate ruling from the United States Supreme Court. It just came down. It came down. Very unfortunate ruling. But the good news is that almost all countries and corporations want to keep the deal that they already made, right, Scott? Knowing that the legal power that I, as president, have to make a new deal could be far worse for them, and therefore they will continue to work along the same successful path that we had negotiated before the Supreme Court's unfortunate involvement.
What do you think it was like being a member of the Supreme Court hearing that? Well, not for Kavanaugh, but for Amy Coney Barrett, who was staring at him so intently with zero expression on her face. I mean, she really faced him down, I thought.
I thought she did. I thought Justice Roberts, of course, Justice Kagan did as well. I think he makes a mistake. These are just people too. And if he goes at them, and if he denigrates them, and if he, gets his crowd of supporters to cheer when he denigrates them, that's going to leave a mark. I think they also believe quite deeply that what he did was wrong. And remember, 3 justices of the conservative majority on the court, Justices Barrett and also Justice Gorsuch, as well as the chief, all said he was acting beyond the limits of his power. And I mean, it is pretty idiotic, right? That the Congress was cheering him saying, I don't have to pay attention to the Congress.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was incredible. Incredible.
And in a speech that was devoid of much substance, that was certainly one of the more weighty moments.
Well, I loved your comment that it was MAGA for dummies, and I'm wondering, does this move the needle for him? I mean, it was a bit like, I thought it was a bit like watching a vaudeville act where the performer is bringing out all his old good uns. So, as you say, he turned it into a bit of a game show, but it felt like he was jazz handing to the max. And I thought, what's so curious about watching him as a performer is his ability to put his head on one side, and you can see him like a bird listening very intently to the level of applause, the level of reaction in the room, and then playing to it in the moment. And in the first hour, he appeared to stay on script, and then he starts, his comfort level goes off, this is working, and so he starts ad-libbing a bit more. But you see the performer in him, and the whole thing was like it was well choreographed as a television show, as a reality television show, to help him when his back is against the wall.
Yeah, but he's also fading entertainer. I don't know if you remember
Well,
the
that's
Laurence
what I mean.
Olivier.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do you
of course,
remember
the
the
entertainer.
Laurence Olivier
Yeah,
movie, The Entertainer, right?
of course I
Where
did.
he's kind of this over the hill vaudevillian, and that's what Trump is. He's an over the hill vaudevillian
Yeah.
who's going back. And last night he was doing the same old thing, but when he woke up this morning, his poll numbers are not going to go up. His only next move, apparently, is to consider, attacking Iran again, which MAGA hates, right? Or pushing forward with tariffs that will ultimately require a vote from Congress that will prove to him that chunks of MAGA hate it. So, it's what Democrats were always against him. Now, independents, to the tune of 80 or 85% of independents, are against him. But what's really going to eat into Trump's worldview is the fact that day by day, one by one, and last night you saw Representative Thomas Massey, a real right winger, sit with the Democrats. Something is happening here. And meanwhile, Trump's going, have you heard my old joke? And here's the old soft shoe. And, it's the entertainer, right? And he's trying to get a laugh out of it, but it's not coming. It's not coming. And pretty soon the hook's going to come for him and pull him off the stage.
And pull him off the stage. Oh, well, I just want to say hello to some of our commentators. We've got hello from Sweden, Canada checking in, greetings from Germany. It must be very confusing. Oh, hello from Central Illinois. That's early dawn. Hi, early dawn. But so exciting having people checking in from across the world, because they must be mystified by this, absolutely mystified. Okay, so one of the other.
Well, I was born in Central Illinois.
Oh, you were?
I'm born in Urbana, Illinois, and and I've been following this pretty closely, and it's mystifying all the time, because more than ever in U.S. history, everything, foreign policy, domestic policy, politics, all depends on what's going on between the two ears of one man's head. It's all about one person. It's all about Trump's personality. And, you have a whole podcast on what's going on inside Trump's head, and you know that it is a kind of a rancid soup. You never know what's happening in there. But literally, all our trading partners, the people of Iran, the people of the Middle East, people across America, immigrants, our neighbors, they're all like, what's going on? What does he feel like this morning? What's his current craziness?
I think that if you were analyzing last night, you would say he left it all on the stage. I thought that he was thoroughly enjoying himself. I mean, you made the point in your column that he's clutching the podium as hard as it gets, and it almost looked as if he was physically sinking at one point. And yet you could sense he was enjoying it. He was in his happy place, which was at the center of attention. He had everybody applauding him apart from some Democrats. And I want to come to that in a second. Oh, we've got someone from the UK. Good. My people are represented. Excellent. You've got your people from Illinois. I've got some people from the UK. What did you think of his technique of turning it or trying to turn it on the Democrats? And we've got a clip here I want to play where he's chastising the Democrats. Bear with us.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself. These people are crazy, I'm telling you. They're crazy.
So you've got Congressman Ro Khanna just looking on there at the end. And then, of course, you've got Ilhan Omar from Minnesota shouting back at Trump as he tries to use the question of whether or not the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens. Stand up if you agree.
Keep going.
And-
Keep going.
Well,
Keep going.
That's
what he said.
Well,
He said the first duty of the American
government is to protect
people.
American citizens, not illegal aliens. And
well, that's the critical point, right?
Yeah.
That all of this was about part of his racist attack, like his racist attack on the Somalis, which was disgusting, and to play to this trope of his that we are being invaded, we are not, that immigrants are the problem in America, immigrants are the greatness of America, and that the threat is coming from immigrants, when in fact 80 to 90% of the people they're rounding up have no criminal record at all. What Ilhan Omar was shouting at Donald Trump in this particular moment was, you are killing Americans. And that's the point. His people, his Customs and Border Patrol people, summarily executed 2 people in her hometown on video for everybody in America to see. And so, he is playing this game, but the majority of Americans, who, by the way, disapprove of his immigration policies at this moment, who think he's gone too far with immigration enforcement and beyond that at this moment, are appalled by this. I thought there was one moment, by the way, there was a reference to a World War II hero. And the great thing this World War II hero, there were 2, but this was the first one. The great thing this World War II hero did, Trump said, was he liberated internment camps. And I was like, say what, brother? You are building internment camps across America. You are recreating the great national shame of the internment camps of the Japanese, except on a much, much bigger scale. And now you're going to celebrate this guy because he liberated Japanese internment camps? I mean, that were being run by the Japanese? It was, it may have played to Steve Scalise and Mike Johnson and all the other members of the soon-to-be minority in the United States House of Representatives. But to the American people, it is what it was, an ugly, racist, hectoring people who look like them, who are trying to protect them. And so I don't think it was terribly effective.
What do you think about the use of the US hockey team, who obviously won the gold in a thrilling match on Sunday? And not all of them turned up, we should make the point. Half of them turned up.
Well, 5 of them did not turn up, but let's also be clear. That's not the US hockey team. That's the US men's hockey team. The US women's hockey team said they did not want to participate in this. And although Trump said they will soon be coming to the White House, rest assured, they will not soon be coming to the White House. He used them as a prop, just like he used Medal of Honors as a prop, just like he used victims of, people, little girls who were run over by trucks as a prop. He doesn't care. He does seem to have a kind of a weird taste for blood. He really liked, and there was blood everywhere. And in every story he told, there was a lot of blood. But he doesn't care about the human beings behind these stories, whether they're hockey players or they're World War II heroes or they're little girls. What he cares about is getting applause. This is back to your point. Feeling good about himself. All the Medal of Honor things, and this guy goes into this illegal operation in Venezuela and is injured in it, and no doubt he was a hero trying to do his duty to the country, and he's awarded overnight a Medal of Honor, whereas this other guy, by the way, had to wait 80 years for his Medal of Honor. He's awarded a Medal of Honor overnight. And why? Because Trump thinks that when they get applause, the applause is for him. It's all about stolen glory. And of course, the most outrageous moment of the entire night was after all of this,
Yeah.
Trump saying, I thought I should win the Medal of Honor. America's most famous draft dodger, a guy who actually paid to have somebody else, go off and fulfill his duty. This cowardly user, he's trying to figure out how to award himself the Medal of Honor.
All right, we have a clip of that.
And I will ask the First Lady of the United States to present Captain Royce Williams with his Congressional Medal of Honor. I've always wanted the Congressional Medal of Honor, but I was informed I'm not allowed to give it to myself, and I wouldn't know why I'd be taking it, but if they ever open up that law, I will be there with you someday.
I think you probably saw some wannabe role playing in the bedroom there, that what he really longs for is to stand naked in front of his movie star wife and have Melania put a congressional medal with that beautiful blue thread around his neck.
I mean, and now we will turn to our spokesmodel, Melania, who will award this esteemed award. There was nothing about that wasn't creepy. Their relationship is the one time he introduced her as the movie star. If you looked at the shot of her, she barely smiled.
Well, David, we've got that clip. I'm glad you raised that. Let's just watch that. I was amazed that she didn't give him one of her big smiles. Will we play? I think we're trying to play the clip. This is always the complexity of doing things live, but at least people know we're live.
You could do it.
I could do it.
You could. No.
Oh, we've got the real thing. We've got the real thing.
No one cares more about protecting America's youth than our wonderful First Lady. Now a movie star. She's a movie star. Can you believe it? Who would have believed that?
I mean, almost. I mean, possible she can't move her face very much because of extra Botox. Who knows? But that wasn't even a smile. It was a rictus.
Yeah, it's true. But you got to think she's getting paid millions to stay his wife, and he didn't pay her enough to actually show her teeth when she smiled fakely in front of him. I don't know. She creeps me out as much as Stephen Miller creeps me out, but in her own special way. But just to go back to this other point about, I mean, did you see the wistful look in his eye when he said, well, maybe someday they'll change the law. Yeah. And then I'll be right up there with you with my Medal of Honor. And all I can say is people who saw that, go read the story in today's Daily Beast, which I read, about all the monuments to himself that he's building and his new plan to take America's fourth largest airport and renovate it, but not just name it after himself. This was such a real grace note in the story. But he wants to rename the much hated buses that take you to the airplane so that their initials are his initials. He wants to make them called DJTs, like something, I don't know what it was, but some kind of transport.
Well, it's funny that he would put the J in the middle. Otherwise, it'd be the DTs, and I'm not sure you'd.
Well, that's something. Well, that's a all different story. But he doesn't train. But the level of mania, of narcissism. I mean, they would say that Nero built a gilded theater and did a lot of excess when he was the emperor of Rome. But the reality is this: he wasn't that bad. He was trying to do some stuff for Rome. He overspent a little bit. Trump is way more in the Caligula department. Trump is way more in making his horse a senator. He is completely demented about trying to put his name on everything.
Well, and
last night there was more of that.
Yeah, and every time he referenced something with his name on, he would pretend that it wasn't his idea. So it's like they're trying to make the Trump baby accounts. It wasn't my idea to put the name on it. I actually know that it was his idea, and the way that how they sold it to him was telling him it was his idea, actually. So it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating
I know but it's weird. I mean,
story of American politics.
It's so weird. And you're right, because that happened twice last night. It happened with the Trump savings account, and it happened with the Trump drug savings accounts, or whatever that
Trump
other thing was.
Trump RX.
And both times, the aging entertainer used his same line. Well, it wasn't me. and everybody laughs, knowing full well that it was him, because he's a lunatic.
Well, I do think your note too. I mean, I found the stories of the Second World War soldiers very moving. But I thought your point about how he's putting up all these people, and including all these people who truly have glorious stories, and then stealing their glory, their stolen valor, was perhaps the most poignant moment of the night. That even though he stands up there, even though he has this group of sycophants clapping like seals, as you say, it's not enough. That strangely, as he stands before us, he seems even more like an empty vessel.
Yeah, I'm sure there is some sympathetic psychological analysis that would go on here, because he's obviously completely fucked up by his parents or whatever happened. And, at some point, if we had enough empathy, I don't quite have that much empathy, we might start to feel for the guy. But he's doing so much damage as a consequence of this, that I those feelings that I have are muted. As far as the stolen valor, there's one kind of thing that people repeat a lot that drives me crazy, but I'm going to do it right here. Imagine if Barack Obama had called out somebody during a State of the Union and said, "And we've got for you here," particularly somebody who had just done a couple of weeks earlier one of Barack Obama, a mission to serve his agenda, and said, "We're giving you, here's a general, he's giving you this Medal of Honor." The Republicans would unanimously all utter the words "stolen valor." They would say you are demeaning the most venerated, highly thought of honor that we can give in the United States, that you are using it for political purposes. But here the trained seals just clap their fins together, and it's pretty appalling. It's the same way. I mean, what must be very chilling, and I see here that a lot of the people who are listening are from outside the U.S. One of the things I find most chilling is when these buffoons start chanting "USA, USA." When we get into this it's so embarrassing, it's so jingoistic, and it's like, well, what are we standing for? Because to take this into a slightly more serious direction, yesterday was not just the State of the Union. It was the 4th anniversary of the escalated Russian invasion of Ukraine. And while he told the story of a Ukrainian refugee woman, which was pretty tragic, what he did not tell was that he has betrayed Ukraine, that he has withdrawn the aid that we were giving Ukraine, that he has taken the side of the Russians, who are committing war crimes on a daily basis, who are killing people by the thousands, that his own negotiator, Steve Witkoff, last week said, well, Vladimir Putin has always been very straight with me. That they're clearly on the wrong side on this. It is so disgusting. That's what USA stands for now. That's what USA stands for. It stands for betraying democracies, betraying our allies, shooting our own people in the street. He stood up for the SAVE Act, which would knock tens of millions of people out of their ability to vote. He, is continuing with his authoritarian attack on freedom of expression in the United States. Lindsey Graham had sitting next to him in the gallery, or sitting as his guest in the gallery, David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, The guy who bought Paramount, gutted CBS News, now is trying to do the same thing with Warner Brothers and Netflix, is part of a sort of oligarch campaign to control the means of communication in this country. This was fascism on display, authoritarianism on display, America shifting sides and joining with our old enemies like Russia on display. And so, it's clownish, but it's also deeply, deeply chilling.
It's deeply chilling and it's deeply dangerous. David, as always, your insights are, they're superb. And we'll be back, the two of us will be back on Sunday to dig into this more. Thank you so much for joining us. I know everybody wanted to talk to you this morning. I cannot reference your column highly enough at the Daily Beast, or indeed your own Deep State Radio, where you podcast every day. But you bring such authority and such thoughtfulness to what's going on, and you will never be fobbed off by the old sad entertainer. David, I will see you on Sunday, and I hope everybody online with us now will join us, and we'll get into it even more on Sunday.
I look forward to it.